It's me, it's Jason Dutch, and I'm here with the dig, much to everyone's chagrin, I'm sure. But Mikey Famine has requested that I do a particular dig, and I'm going to do a particular dig. He requested that I do the dig on sovereign citizens. So, let me clear my throat. All right, so let's get to it. My eighth grade social studies teacher taught me things that turns out after doing my own research wasn't exactly the whole story. And this week, though his defense, why would he teach about this? But this week, we'll dive into the topic of sovereign citizens. Now, according to Oxford, a sovereign citizen is a member of a political movement that opposes taxation, questions the legitimacy of government, and believes that they are not subject to law. They also believe that JFK Jr., Elvis, and Tupac are all alive and living in a condo in Denver. Of course, that last part I added, but it's definitely true. I've been there, and they're all doing very well. So, hi, guys. Sovereign citizens, here's an example of a case that involved a sovereign citizen. As reported by WTOC 11 in Georgia in 2020, a federal jury took less than 15 minutes to find a previously convicted felon guilty of illegally owning a firearm. Michael Williams of Savannah was found guilty after a trial in which he acted as a sovereign citizen, claiming that he was immune from the law. Williams was previously convicted in a separate case for possession with intent to distribute controlled substances. The U.S. attorney assigned to the case said, for the second time this year, a so-called sovereign citizen has failed to excuse his illegal actions in the Southern District by claiming to be above the law. No one is above the law, especially those claiming fictitious legal status to circumvent their guilt for repeated crimes. It is illegal for a convicted felon to own a firearm. Now, that's the end quote. So the issue here with this story is, and there's many stories like this, is that last sentence. Williams did not view himself as a convicted felon because the law, of course, was not applicable to him. Thus, any penalty for breaking the law does not exist, or must, of course, be zero. Substances should not be controlled. Firearms should not be controlled or regulated, right? Okay, that's what he's thinking. So the Office of Unified Communications in D.C. developed a training course for this, for those who come into contact with sovereign citizens. The course outline reads, it is designed to give public safety dispatchers, like 911 operators, an understanding of the sovereign citizen, why it is a growing movement, and to recognize common tactics used when they are in contact with law enforcement. The course is also offered to police, code enforcement officials, and animal control. The syllabus states that the intention is for the student to describe general ideologies, identify key words, understand paper terrorism, describe recruitment methods used, and analyze their own role when it comes to sovereign citizen contacts. So let's take our own course. I am Professor Dutch. And class, I want you to pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. Mikey Famine, you put down that straw. You young man, you do not shoot the guest with that spitball. You do not, you hooligan. Mikey, go see the dean. The sovereign citizen movement started in the 1960s by a far-right white supremacist Christian organization called Posse Comitatus, who had a core belief that the U.S., of course, is controlled by a cabal of rich Jews. They adhere only to common law, the Posse, which they define themselves based on an interpretation of, guess what, the Bible. They state that the original government set up by the founding fathers was indeed a common law system, but was secretly replaced. Shh. Don't tell anyone. It was probably replaced. And thus they engaged in paper terrorism, essentially the mass filing of bogus lawsuits. Today, the movement has broadened into a loose grouping of litigants, activists, tax protesters, financial schemers, and conspiracy theorists who claim to be answerable only to their own interpretation of super crazy libertarian common law, often claiming to have renounced their citizenship. It's almost like libertarian extremism. They often do not recognize, Steve, sorry. They often do not recognize U.S. currency and reject taxation as illegitimate. Many argue that we, that's all of us, the federal citizens, have foolishly forfeited our rights by accepting federal law, again claiming still that the legitimate government and legal system have been secretly replaced and that the current authorities are not legitimate. Hold on. Why does this sound familiar? Anyway, an offshoot, the Free Men on the Land, is found in Canada and Australia. Now, all these movements appeal to people facing financial or legal difficulties or wishing to resist a perceived government oppression and are looking for a mechanism to solve that problem. So basically, they just, ignore the problem. So, like Mikey and Haas, they like to ignore me. You see how that works? It doesn't work because I'm still here, guys, even though I'm not here. Anyway, haha to you. So, sorry, I got a little allergy issue today. So, despite the far-right origins, it now includes varying racial ideologies, most commonly white-identifying Hispanics, and African Americans, with the latter often belonging to either the Black Israelites or, more frequently, the Moorish sects. Something I unfortunately know a little bit too much about because my ex-wife is a member of the Moorish temple and also a fucking lunatic. Interestingly, the Moors believe that they descended from the Moroccan Moors, who they claim are America's original inhabitants and thus entitled to self-governing, citing the 1786 Moroccan-American Treaty of Friendship as exemption from American law. Convenient. Moors are perhaps the best organized of the group of the sovereigns. The FBI classifies sovereign citizen extremists as domestic terrorists. Terry Nichols, one of the perpetrators of the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, subscribed to sovereign citizen ideology. In surveys of U.S. law enforcement agencies, the risk of terrorism from the sovereign citizen movement ranked higher than the risk from any other group, including Islamist extremists, militias, neo-Nazis, and although it is safe to say that some of those groups may also, in addition, identify as sovereigns. Now, the truth is that sovereign citizens, who often ironically carry a copy of the Constitution in their pocket and present it as identification, are mostly just a nuisance to cops and generally harmless outside of their delusions and, of course, the tax evasion. Most of these folks use mangled readings of the Constitution and obscure tax codes to claim that because they never agreed to the federal government's authority, they are not subject to it. How convenient is that? And how privileged is that? By the way, Article 6 of the Constitution gives the federal government express authority over citizens. If you want to give up your your citizenship, you have to do so in front of an American diplomat in a foreign country. You don't just get to go continuing living here because you said it in your living room. Okay? So, like I said, though, their reasoning is mangled. So it's like a box of old cable wires that I have, and I'm trying to get one cable out. Just a nightmare for a different day. Many of the beliefs are based in a bogus U.S. history lesson, which goes as follows. Since 1933, the U.S. dollar has been backed not by gold, but by, quote, the full faith and credit of the federal government, which has pledged its citizenry as collateral. By selling our future, earning capabilities to foreign investors, basically enslaving all of Americans is what they claim. Love how they always revert to slavery. However, as we mentioned earlier, when we are born, there is an account set up for us called a Treasury Direct Account, or a TDA. This is what they believe. So Recently, there is also a fraud movement by sovereign organizations capitalizing on the growing popularity of the movement. They target conservatives, usually online, then scam them with memberships, video courses, and seminars promising to educate them on how to achieve sovereign status. Included in this is selling recruits on redemption theory, which claims to expose the secrets to obtaining the funds in their TDA. One example of these scams took place in Kansas City, where 3 men were convicted of selling phony diplomatic immunity credentials for up to $2,000 each to people studying sovereign philosophy in order to get that cheddar cheese. So these groups, such as the National Liberty Alliance and the Republic for the United States of America, which this is funny. The Republic for the United States of America, the acronym is literally RUSA, Russia. Is that not ironic with what's going on right now? Tucker Carlson loving Russia. Anyway, they also advocate for what they call creating a straw man, which is a second identity that appears to adhere to laws, in contrast with the true self, which doesn't. Thank you, Buddha, for the true self concept. And this, of course, ties in again with that TDA theory that when we're born, we have this secret bank account that is ours that we just have to find. They advocate this because they believe that on your birth certificate, okay, your name is spelled out in all capitals. So that must mean something. And what it means is that that is the acronym for the shell corporation that owns your strawman identity. Okay. So it's really wacky stuff. Perhaps the most alarming wing is the Continental Marshals for the Republic, who I'm guessing answer only to Palpatine. I mean, this really is some wild-ass First Order shit, isn't it? Execute Order 1776. I renounce my citizenship. No tax for me. So these marshals, they are the enforcement arm for the sovereign's own common law courts. Now, this is not all. This is a particular group. They make their own uniforms. They have their own badges. We don't need no stinking badges. Yes, they do. And they have a handbook. And I've got some words from that handbook, and here they are. Quote, the constitutional marshal and his appointed deputies. Duties include, but are not limited to, overseeing court security, serving and enforcement of writs and warrants and indictments provided by the common law grand jury. Sir, issued, I say, with the signature of a constitutional justice. The marshals shall also assist with court security, prisoner transport, asset forfeiture, I need your car, and apprehending fugitives. Doesn't sound the slight bit ominous to me. They're just law-abiding good people. 4 of these fake cops were arrested in New Mexico in 2017, attempting to use these marshal credentials to gain the release of an imprisoned associate. The website Just Security predicts domestic terrorism will become diversified by new lone actors exposed to and subscribing to these sovereignist ideologies. They explain that sovereign ideology is already being adopted by QAnon. For example, Pauline Bauer, a Q, not the one from Star Trek, is facing charges in the J6 insurrection. And she, in court, rejected the authority of a federal judge and argued that only God has dominion over her. She stole that from Tupac, by the way. The latest overlap with sovereigns is with individuals who are resisting anti-COVID measures, such as vax and mask, by adopting sovereign citizen tactics to justify their refusal to follow government recommendations. I will not comply with that muzzle over my beautiful face. Will not comply. The estimated amount of sovereigns in the U.S. today is estimated at 300,000 to 1 million, according to the SLA. I now pass this on, and that is basically the end of today's dig. Mikey, this was your idea. I learned a shit ton. This was a good idea. I commend you. A little bit longer. You asked for it. Screw you. I now pass this on for the first comment to our guest, who turns out is the court marshal, Stephen Cox. And I'm out of here, bitches. I got to go get my bank account that's been kept from me my whole life. Later.